Walt picks up the traits of the people he kills. After Mike dies, Walt ditches his usual neat drinks and starts ordering them on the rocks, just like Mike did. He even uses one of Mike's go-to lines when dealing with Lydia, slipping into his old associate's tone like it's a costume he forgot to take off. Then, there's the crustless peanut butter and jelly sandwiches Crazy 8's quirky preference, suddenly showing up in Walt's kitchen not long after his murder. It's not just food and phrases either. Fans point to how Walt transforms after Gus's death, shifting into a colder, more calculating version of himself. He becomes less reactive, more deliberate, and way more terrifying. It's like each kill leaves behind a little souvenir in Walt's psyche, turning him into a mosaic of the people he's eliminated. Breaking Bad is a prequel to The Walking Dead. Fans point to Daryl digging through Merle's stash and pulling out a bag of bright blue meth as the smoking gun. It looks identical to Walt's ultra-pure blue sky, and that color's not exactly common. Then there's the Negro Y Azul song playing in Fear the Walking Dead, which feels like more than just a random soundtrack choice. Glenn's red Dodge Challenger, it looks suspiciously like the one Walt bought for his son, right down to the stripes. Even Daryl's story about Murley's dealer sounds a lot like Jesse. Scrappy, loud, and dropping that classic "I'm gonna kill you bitch" line. Some take it further and say Walt's meth wasn't just dangerous, it was world-ending. Whether through chemical fallout or mutated side effects, his product may have helped launch the apocalypse. Everything lines up a little too well. By the way, if you guys like movie and TV content like this, I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Ted is Walter Jr.'s real father. Fans pushing this theory point to a moment where Ted comments on Walt Jr.'s growth with a smirk and says "good genes," which some think was less small talk and more of a quiet flex. The physical resemblance gets brought up a lot too. Walt Jr. shares more features with Ted than Walt, and that includes facial structure and hair. Then there's the affair between Skyler and Ted, which wasn't exactly subtle, but the theory stretches further and suggests their connection may have started way earlier, possibly before Walter Jr. was even born. Add in the editing choices and pauses in conversations about Walter Jr.'s paternity, and it all starts to look like the show's planting clues in plain sight. If true, it means Walt's family was never really his, even before the meth showed up. Hank always suspected Walt. Before that bathroom book dropped the hammer, fans think Hank was already sniffing around the truth. One of the earliest signs pops up when Hank shows Walt the gas mask found in the desert. Walt's awkward reaction isn't just nervous, it's bizarre, and Hank clocks it with this weird look. Then there's the moment in season 2 where Hank checks Walt's car and pulls out a magnetic object, which a lot of fans think was him either planting or retrieving a tracker. That's not something you do unless you're at least a little suspicious. Later on, in a chat about Gale, Walt downplays the guy's brilliance so aggressively that it actually sparks something in Hank. He starts digging through Gale's files again, noticing that chicken napkin. So while the bathroom scene is dramatic, the trail might have started long before. Breaking Bad is all Jesse's dream. This theory claims Jesse never left Walter White's classroom, and the entire show unfolds in his half-asleep imagination. Fans think the whole saga is just Jesse nodding off during one of Walt's monotone chemistry lectures, dreaming up a twisted journey where his high school teacher becomes a criminal mastermind, dragging him through chaos. The logic follows a dreamlike power structure. Walt's the authority figure, and Jesse's trapped in his orbit. Supporters point out the show's frequent use of surreal scenes and hazy tension, like the infamous crawl space moment, as proof that reality's already bendable. It's not played as literal, but more like Jesse's subconscious untangling guilt, control, and his own failures by turning Walt into this towering myth. Since Jesse and Walt's bond drives everything, the dream framing turns their story into something even more tragic and symbolic: Skyler's tragic end. Fans of this theory zero in on the finale scene where Walt visits Skyler, then leaves her standing in silhouette. The shadow behind her head stretches downward, and some viewers swear it resembles a hanging figure, like the show's slipping in a grim clue about what's next. This isn't baseless guesswork either. Vince Gilligan once revealed an alternate ending where Walt would find Skyler dead by suicide in a bathtub after cutting her wrists, but the writers decided it was too bleak to include. Supporters see that abandoned storyline echoing in Felina's framing, treating the shadow as a ghost of what could have been. Even earlier, Skyler's slow walk into the family pool during 51 is interpreted as a rehearsal for self-destruction, turning that final silhouette into a quiet but chilling nod toward her unspoken fate. Felina is Walt's dying dream. This theory says Walt never made it out of that snowy cabin, he dies alone, and everything in the finale is just his fantasy playing out as he fades away. After Ozymandias, he's emaciated, coughing blood, and cut off from from the world, which makes it easy to believe his body gives out. Fans note the show never actually shows him leaving New Hampshire, which opens the door for this imagined final act. In this reading, his revenge is too clean, too perfect. He gets to save Jesse, punish the neo-Nazis, and even say a final goodbye to Skyler. The obituary mentions lung cancer, not a gunshot, reinforcing the idea that this ending could be his brain filling in the blanks as it shuts down. The dreamlike pacing, flawless outcomes, and surreal calm make it feel less like a finale and more like a final breath. Gus works with the CIA. Fans backing this theory highlight how Gus's past in Chile is a complete black hole. Hank even says there's no record of him, which sounds less like mystery and more like erasure. Then there's Don Eladio's warning, "I know who you really are." That line, paired with Gus being spared when others are killed, feels like cartel-level respect or fear of someone with powerful backing. His entry into the United States with zero immigration trail raises eyebrows too. How does a man like that operate so cleanly unless someone's clearing the path? Some point to his possible ties to the Pinochet regime, suggesting he worked with US intelligence during Chile's dictatorship. His strategic discipline, surgical planning, and ability to avoid DEA heat make him look less like a gangster and more like someone trained to infiltrate. Color hides messages and themes throughout the show. Breaking Bad turns color into a secret language, layering meaning into every scene without saying a word. Walt's early beige wardrobe screams dull and unthreatening, but as he morphs, so does his palette. Green starts to creep in, echoing money, control, and ambition. The meth's crystal blue color acts like a brand, but also a symbol of his twisted pride in chemical purity. Marie is basically a walking grape with her purple obsession, signaling detachment or denial, while everyone else spirals. Hank wears a lot of orange, landing between danger and violence in the show's palette. When Walt delivers his famous threat in a red shirt, it's not subtle. Even Skyler's early blue choices reflect emotional honesty before everything goes sideways. These visual cues sneak into lighting, props, and backdrops too, planting messages where no one's talking. Skyler caused Walter Jr.'s cerebral palsy from smoking while pregnant. Supporters of this theory always come back to one brief but loaded scene in season 2. Skyler, visibly pregnant, pauses before lighting a cigarette. That moment stands out because it's not just casual smoking. It's framed with tension, like the show's calling attention to it. Fans argue that exposure to tobacco in utero could be the root cause of Flynn's condition, linking his cerebral palsy back to that choice. Some even stretch the theory to say Skyler's smoking may have affected Walt too, pointing at secondhand smoke as a distant contributor to his lung cancer. Talk pages and fan forums have speculated that this is the show planting seeds of blame without explicitly confirming anything. To these theorists, the cigarette isn't just a character flaw. It's a quiet origin story for the family's suffering, tucked inside a few seconds of screen time. Walt faked his second diagnosis. The second time Walt claims his cancer returns, fans point out he tells no one until it's convenient. He only reveals it to Hank during a heated standoff, using it like a smoke bomb to stall or soften the blow. There's no on-screen biopsy, scan, or medical visit confirming it, just Walt's word. That's a big shift from season 1, where his diagnosis plays out in full clinical detail. The contrast feels deliberate. When he tells Hank, he even says, "It's gonna kill me before you ever prove a thing," turning the illness into a legal shield. His entire empire runs on manipulation, so why not fake one more thing? The sympathy, the lowered suspicion, the emotional power, it all benefits him. To some fans, that unverified, convenient cancer claim reads less like truth and more like strategy dressed up as tragedy. The White's pool is a source of evil. Fans of this theory say the pool isn't just part of Walt's backyard, it's where the rot creeps in. The pink teddy bear, scorched and lifeless, lands right there after the plane crash, turning the water into a graveyard. The pool becomes a mirror for guilt, loss, and the quiet invasion of death. It's never clean fun, it's empty, murky, or just still. When Skyler walks into it during her breakdown, it's like she's surrendering to everything Walt dragged home. Even outside the White family, pools carry that same curse. Don Eladio's pool is where Gus's partner Max is murdered, blood mixing with water like a permanent stain. Across the series, pools mark key turning points and collapses, as if they collect the moral sludge left behind. They reflect nothing but what's already broken. Mike is Jesse from the future. Fans pushing this time travel theory say Mike's protective streak toward Jesse isn't just loyalty, it's self-preservation. An older Jesse stepping back in time to steer his younger self away from disaster. Sources all flag this as one of the wildest Breaking Bad ideas. Supporters point to how Mike knows the game so well, warning Jesse with oddly specific advice that feels like lived experience. They also emphasize their shared traits. Both hate hurting kids, both wrestle with moral fallout, both act like weary men trapped in a bad system. Some even list reasons, linking their personalities and arcs as if they're one continuous line. Fans also notes how the theory imagines imagines Gus and Gale as future agents too, but Mike's bond with Jesse remains the centerpiece. To believers, every lecture Mike gives reads like a coded message from tomorrow. Walt has dissociative identity disorder. Supporters of this theory argue that Walter White and Heisenberg aren't just two sides of one man, they're two distinct identities sharing one body. They point to how Walt shifts instantly from timid dad to calculating kingpin, with changes in voice, posture, and even facial expression that feel like someone else taking over. In Season 2's Bit by a Dead Bee, he fakes a dissociative fugue as an alibi after vanishing, but fans see that as more than a cover story, maybe the show hinting at an underlying split. Analysts have noted how Walt compartmentalizes his life with surgical precision, keeping a family persona that seems oblivious to the crimes he's committing. Even in the final season, there's no true fusion of Walter and Heisenberg. This sharp division fuels the idea that his transformation isn't just moral, but clinical, a textbook case of dissociative identity. Jesse's superheroes represent his inner psyche. In Season 2, when Jesse shares his superhero sketches with Jane, Hoverman, Kangaman, and Rewind-O, fans read them as more than doodles. Hoverman, who floats just above the ground, reflects Jesse's lack of stability, always drifting but never grounded. Kangaman, with a pouch to carry others, symbolizes Jesse's deep need to protect and nurture, especially the vulnerable people he clings to throughout the series. Rewind-O, who can run backward and reverse time, screams regret, his longing to undo pain he's caused or escape the fallout of his choices. Jane even tells him they're versions of himself, underlining the metaphor. The theory argues these characters mirror Jesse's emotional fractures, his guilt, his helplessness, and his aching need for connection. Those sketches aren't just imagination, they're quiet confessions scrawled in ink, hiding his real story in plain sight. Madrigal was founded by Nazi war criminals. Fans of this theory dig into the company's German origins. Its full name, Madrigal Electromotive, carries a cold, industrial feel straight out of mid-century Europe. The theory posits that fleeing Nazis used post-war migration routes to set up the company as a clean front for dirty money. The show never explains Madrigal's beginnings, but the eerie lack of backstory only adds to the suspicion. Tied to this is Gus's mysterious past in Chile, which some link to post-war Nazi safe havens. The theory folds in the presence of white supremacist villains like Uncle Jack, treating them not as random criminals, but echoes of something institutional. Madrigal's global power, faceless executives, and pristine boardrooms make it the perfect shell. Too clean to be clean. For some viewers, that silence about its origins says everything. Breaking Bad is a prequel to Malcolm in the Middle. Fans pushing this theory connect the dots through Bryan Cranston himself, who plays both Walter White and Hal Wilkerson. The idea goes that Walt survives the Felina shootout, enters witness protection, and adopts the identity of Hal, a nervous, awkward dad trying to leave Heisenberg behind. Screen Rant and CBR both include this theory in fan roundups, citing Walt's disappearance and Hal's obliviousness as oddly compatible. The clincher for many is the gag ending on the Breaking Bad DVD, where Hal wakes up in bed and tells Lois about a dream where he was a drug kingpin. It's a direct parody, but also fuel for the theory. If Heisenberg dies in the eyes of the world, Hal becomes the shell Walt hides inside, trading violence for chaos, meth labs for household meltdowns. It's absurd, but oddly seamless. Madrigal caused Walt's cancer. Some fans believe Madrigal Electromotive's shady reach goes way deeper than just funding Gus's empire. They say the company planted the first domino by triggering Walt's cancer years earlier. The theory claims Madrigal sold defective air filtration or chemical handling systems to gray matter technologies back when Walt still worked there. So while he thought he was just doing science, he may have been breathing in carcinogens the entire time. The kicker is that this connects his downfall to the same company twice, first through corporate negligence, then through the criminal web he later joins. It makes Madrigal less of a background player and more of the silent architect behind Walt's slow collapse. That link between Walt's cancer and the drug empire isn't just poetic, it's sinister. Like his whole story was quietly engineered from day one by a faceless corporate puppet master pulling strings from the shadows. Gus killed Victor for being seen. Right before Victor's death in Boxcutter, Mike calls Gus and reports that Victor was spotted entering Gale's apartment, the crime scene. That moment frames Victor as a liability, not just muscle. When Gus arrives, he doesn't flinch. He calmly slits Victor's throat right in front of Walt and Jesse, sending a clear, cold message. Exposure equals elimination. It's not about rage, it's about optics. Walt later suggests Gus punished Victor for drawing attention, for getting cocky, for slipping. Victor thought proximity meant protection, but Gus used him to set the tone. No one's untouchable, Not even the help. By removing Victor in such a brutal, calculated way, Gus cuts off risk and reminds everyone that mistakes get cleaned up fast. Jesse and Walter Jr. are the same person. Supporters of this theory latch onto one striking detail. Jesse and Flynn are never shown together in a single frame across the entire series. Not once. That absence is treated like a flashing sign, suggesting the two characters are actually one identity split for the audience's sake. Fans also point out how the show's editing often bounces between Jesse's story and Flynn's without overlap, almost like a visual sleight of hand hiding their connection. Some go even deeper, claiming Walt orchestrated a total reinvention. Jesse supposedly reemerges under heavy disguise as his own son, complete with a wheelchair, changed voice, and a new name to bury his past. When Aaron Paul heard about this idea, he even joked nervously about it, which theorists cite as fuel. The lack of interaction stands as their biggest piece of proof. Gus and Max were lovers. Fans have long believed their bond went deeper than business, and the signs are all over the place. When Max is executed by Hector and Hermanos, Gus doesn't just grieve, he shatters. That moment carries emotional weight far beyond a partner's death. He builds a memorial fountain, funds scholarships in Max's name, and spends years orchestrating revenge with a precision that feels personal, not just tactical. Showrunner Peter Gould later confirmed it on a podcast. Max was Gus's boyfriend. Vince Gilligan once said the relationship was open to interpretation, but admitted he thought it was more than friendship. Fans had already picked up on the intensity, secrecy, and protectiveness long before that. In a world where showing affection meant danger, Gus's restraint doesn't hide love, it proves it. If you enjoyed this, I post movie and TV content a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you next time.